Life doesn't always go according to plan. Sometimes it breaks you. After a training accident left me paralysed from the neck down, I had to rebuild my body, my mind, and my life. I'm Ryan Curtis, and every episode we dig into the chaos that shapes who we become. Before we get into the episode, it means the absolute world to us if you could follow or subscribe on whatever platform you're currently listening to this on. For you guys, it's just a small click of the button, but for us, it's huge to grow the podcast, to get bigger guests on, and have more interesting conversations for you. Thanks so much and enjoy the episode. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to Made in Chaos with me, Ryan Curtis. On today's episode, we have Colin Judge. Colin is a Paralympic table tennis player who's represented Ireland on the world stage while navigating life with a physical disability from birth. So, Colin, you've kind of lived with difficulty kind of relatively early on in your life. How would you kind of say that's shaped how you view life in comparison to maybe somebody who doesn't face adversity till later on in their life?
I think from a young age, my parents encouraged me to be as independent as possible. My mum knew that the world wasn't going to stop for me, that I'd need to be independent someday. And I think the thing that I most respect about my parents is that from a young age, despite having a kid who was severely disabled, they didn't wrap me in cotton wool.
Nice.
They were always there to support me, but they pushed me to my limit as well. And they wanted me to be as independent as possible from a young age. And I always tell the story of I went to an able-bodied school and I had a school uniform, and my mum and dad used to leave the school uniform on the bed every morning, even from the age of 4, and they knew there wasn't a chance in hell that I could put it on myself. And it was there though, and of course I tried every single morning, and by the age of 9 then I was able to dress myself. And I think the real lesson for me there wasn't learning to dress myself, but it was the relationship with failure and having a positive relationship with failure, because they knew that dressing myself was one obstacle, but the obstacles were going to be far greater later in life, and I was more able for them, I suppose, when they did come around.
Yeah, that's so encouraging that you had people like that in place, because I suppose, probably a lot of people's natural reaction would to come and just do everything for you, but they knew that wasn't really going to help you in the long run. It was so cool to have conscious parents like that.
Yeah, and I think such a because there was no social media back then. I was the first one born with my condition in Ireland, and
oh really?
They didn't have anything to go off, and it was just such a brilliant decision that they made. It would have been the easiest thing in the world, and would have been a very understandable thing to do, to wrap me in cotton wool. And to dress me every day. Would have been completely reasonable.
Did you ever kind of talk about that when you were more kind of like mature and just to get an insight into their mindset into that, or was that just something that you kind of just done for you?
That's just something. I suppose I have an able-bodied brother, Niall, and they didn't really treat us very differently.
Right,
I think,
okay, nice.
My brother didn't see me any differently, and my parents didn't either, and that was great, because, like I said, when the obstacles then they got far greater in the teenage years. I think in my earlier years, childhood, I didn't notice that I was different, and the obstacles were tough, but they were, it was doable for me. I learned to dress myself. I learned to go to the toilet. I learned to pack my school bag. The obstacles were lesser then.
What age were you? Do you remember like being at a certain age and consciously thinking, or I'm a little bit different here, or it's harder to do certain things?
Yeah, well, I think people let you know that you're different with the stares and the comments.
Kids are like.
Yeah, 100%. Kids don't hold back, and that's a good thing in a way. But I suppose I didn't really realise that I was different until the secondary school. So around the age of 12, 13, the teenage years, I think they're the most difficult years for most people with a disability. And I went to a big rugby school, St. Michael's College. My friends all started playing rugby, going to parties, drinking beer, kissing girls, and I just felt completely left behind. And I think it's a difficult thing for any teenage boy, but the only thing that any teenage boy wants is to fit in. And when you've got one arm and no legs, and you're the only person in the school with a disability, it's very hard to fit in.
You know, like you would say that you definitely struggled with confidence around that time of your life.
I had zero confidence back
Right.
then. No belief in myself, and I suppose it was at those teenage years that I hit a low point, and I realized that I had a decision to make, and I suppose my friends, they all started playing rugby, and this, it sounds like the simplest thing, but I decided that I wanted to find a sport, and I felt that might improve my confidence, because that my friends were all rugby players. They went on to play for Leinster and Ireland, and they were very confident, and I said I needed a sport too. And I remember wheelchair rugby was the first sport that I tried, and I wasn't very good at it, but that was the first sport that I tried, and it made me realize that I needed a sport in my life. And table tennis was the only sport that I could beat my brother at, and from then I never looked back. And even though I could beat my brother, it was really difficult learning to play table tennis. In the beginning, my peers passed me out very quickly, but I think table tennis made me realize that for all the things that I couldn't do, there was still a lot that I could do. And I really, really committed to table tennis from a young age, and I improved at it, and it gave me confidence. It improved my social skills. It was more of an outlet in the beginning, more than anything else. And I just met people. I exercised. I started going to the gym along with getting involved in sport, and that was the first thing really that started to improve my confidence, because I followed through with what I said I was going to do. I wanted to find a sport. I wanted to commit to a sport. I was going to train 4 times a week and be the best I can be, and it all went from there.
Where do you think that kind of drive came from at that time? Because that must have been difficult for you to, kind of knowing that you are difficult and some people treating you, and knowing that you are different rather, and some people treating you like you are different. Was that a difficult period of your life to want to grow up and do different things?
100%. I think it's similar for a lot of people, but my motivation, it really came from a place of pain. I didn't really have any identity. I wasn't academic at that stage either. And I improved actually at academics later in my secondary school, but I didn't, I wasn't going to the parties. I wasn't involved in the social scene at the weekend. I didn't play rugby. I didn't study hard, and I just didn't have very much in my life. I didn't know who I was, and I just I had a choice. I can stay like this and be miserable, or I can take action and try and change my.
I'm
my
sure at that point your
take it into
family,
my control.
Your family was very encouraging for you. It would seem like at that point, yeah.
They were always there for me, and like I said, it was a lot easier in the earlier stages, and I think they found it difficult in the teenage years as well, because there's just so many issues, and
there's only so much they could do as well. I could
exactly
imagine.
Yeah, they can't always be there, and they don't know what it's like to have people staring at you and have the comments that came my way, and it was more like I wasn't bullied in school at all. The guys were always really nice to me, but it was the exclusion that I struggled with more. I nearly wish that I was bullied. More like bullied in a funny way. Like I was never part of the jokes. Right. No one would joke with me. The way I was never part of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'd nearly rather that I was made fun of a little bit, because then I would feel part of the gang.
Yeah. What do you think? It was more like that people would probably be making the jokes behind your back, but probably wouldn't necessarily say it to your face, or
potentially, yeah. But I think they were just afraid. Like disability, it was it's not something that anybody likes to talk about now. But 20 years ago or whatever, people didn't really know how to deal with someone with a disability. They just didn't want to talk about it, and
you probably would have felt more comfortable if they actually made light of the situation and probably did make a few jokes.
Yeah, 100%. It's just like I always tell this story as well, that about I got on really well with the lads. I had a lot of friends, and they never invited me to house parties or whatever on the weekend. And years went by, and one day I asked why don't you ever invite me? And they just said that, well, we didn't think you'd want to go. There's steps up to the house. That was the reason,
Yeah.
And I was just, I sort of realized then that, maybe I need to take the initiative, because the lads, they're a lot nicer than they seem. They weren't doing it out of a place of badness.
Yeah.
But it was just complete miscommunication, and that's
Yeah,
a big
maybe
problem.
it's sometimes like they just don't know how to,
How to deal with someone with
yeah, in a
disability.
certain situation, you know.
Yeah, but I went through so much pain because of that.
Mm.
Something so simple.
And yeah, I think like maybe later on in life, then at that point you kind of learned to kind of take control of certain situations like that.
Yeah. Like I
Yeah.
said, I just learned that I had to take initiative and take control of my own life as well, because no one was coming to save me.
And what would it have been like, kind of like growing up when, say, like you were out playing on the streets or whatever, or did you ever do things like that when you were kind of growing up?
Yeah, I mean, I remember playing football with my brother. I was always in the goal. I was quite a good goalkeeper, you know. I was for such a small fella. I could jump high, you know.
Yeah.
I could cover the net pretty well. And no, I had a really like happy child. Like from that point of view, I was very included. It was only really in the teenage years that I was my own worst enemy. You know, it was all to do with my own opinion of myself. You know, because I was never bullied, you know.
Yeah.
It was all just in my head. I was my
Yeah.
own worst enemy.
That
I
was
thought that
internal.
people, I had this idea of what people thought of me, and that it would be bad and that they wouldn't want anything to do with me. And same with girls. When I first started talking to girls, I thought like, well, the only thing that they're going to see is my disability. So, you know, why do I even try? You know, that and it was all in my head.
It's
Like,
just the narrative that you built kind of in your head.
and I didn't know any better, you know.
And then obviously you start getting more comfortable within yourself and you started to build confidence, and then that started to change for you as you got older.
Yeah, and like I said, that started with sport, and then that sort of translated into my academics, which my mum and dad always wanted me to do well in school, and my mum always gave me a great line that I could never match my friends on the rugby pitch, but I could more than match them in the classroom. And
Nice.
I went on to study actuary in UCD, which it was the highest points course in the country at the time. And, you know, I remember I wasn't a good student really up until 5th year. And I remember being in 4th year and speaking to my guidance counsellor and telling him that I wanted to study actuary. And I remember him looking at me like I had 3 heads, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, I just thought back to the time that the doctors told my parents that I'd never be independent, and I wanted to prove them wrong, and that's exactly what I did.
So, so it kind of nearly sometimes just comes, because sometimes, you know, I know even for me with my accident, you know, a lot of the time, like I was just getting up every day to work hard to prove people wrong who said I couldn't do something. You know, was that the case for you?
100%. Like when my parents told me that story at a young age, especially when I learned to dress myself, they told me about the doctors saying that, you know, I'd never be independent, and you know, it was such a shock. Obviously, me being born the way that I was, and I'm sure it was a shock for the doctors and all the rest. But like, how can they come out with a statement like that when there's nobody been born like me before? And I just think people are so quick to put people in a box and to limit people, and it's like, how can you come out with something like that when you just don't know? You know? There's no foundation to any of that, and so I suppose I've been proving people wrong from a young age. And
So it's kind of just like a thing where that's kind of, you've always kind of felt like you've been putting a box, like
and I've always tried to escape it.
Yeah. Do you notice that like kind of happened to you a lot throughout your life? It probably doesn't happen to you as much anymore because I'm sure you're so capable of not allowing that to happen anymore.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I've proved a lot of people wrong. You know, like I remember when I first started playing table tennis, like, how are you going to play table tennis with one arm and no legs? You know, there's nobody else in the world doing that, and there still isn't. But it's like, let me try, you know, and
because that's one of the questions I wanted to ask you. Like, you represented Ireland on the stage, and the world stage in table tennis. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so like I said, table tennis was more of just an outlet in the beginning, but like I said, I took it really seriously, and it was my passion and my drive, and it was everything to me from a young age. And I remember going to London 2012 with my dad and watching the Paralympics, and
Nice.
then I made it my goal to try and qualify, and I missed Rio by 1 place in 2016.
And what was it about table tennis? Like, what made you look at table tennis and was like, oh, I'll give this a go?
I just loved the complexity of it, and I loved that I could use my my mental to sort of make up for my physical.
Yes, nice.
You know,
okay.
I felt that I could develop my own style, and that I could sort of find my own way of playing and use that to my advantage. And I just loved the intricacies of the game, the complexities, and I was just obsessed.
Yeah.
Like, okay, the reason I chose table tennis in the beginning was because it was the only sport that I could beat my brother at. But I remember, I remember, you know, we tried swimming and we tried, you know, wheelchair racing and, you know, everything physical. Just couldn't match him, you know, and it wasn't right, obviously, to to compare myself to my able-bodied brother. But table tennis, I was able to outsmart him on the table.
Nice,
you know?
nice.
Despite him having 4 limbs and me having 1.
Yeah, and
know?
you're actually able to beat me. Yeah,
Yeah.
because obviously you can only compare to what you're used to, you know.
Yeah, but how many sports can you do that? It's like, it's a sport that you can compete at with no limits, and that's what I love.
Yeah, crazy though, you know, table tennis. So, you know, just like, because it's such a complex game that people, you know,
So many different ways of playing, so many different styles, and there's so many good players. Like, there's no hard and fast rules in table tennis.
Yeah.
You know, you see these. I remember playing Leinster League in Dublin, and you see these old fellas like 60 years old, and they're fat. You know, they're overweight and they can't move.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
unbelievable head,
But
unbelievable.
they're really good at table tennis.
They know how to play the game, and it's like,
Yeah.
it's just, there's so much to it. It's not just speed, and it's not just strength, and there's just so many different complexities to it.
And you're still actively playing table tennis right now, yeah?
Very much so, yeah. I've my eyes set on LA 28, taking it year by year, but I'm in a good position. I'm ranked in the top 10 in the world, and
Nice.
I've got the World Championships if I qualify, which I'm in a qualification position at the moment in November, so that's a big stepping stone on the road to LA 28.
And what age were you when you start playing table tennis?
11.
11?
Yeah, so
Right, okay,
20
so you're
years
playing
pretty
that
much,
while,
yeah.
Nice.
20 years, it's a
And
good stint.
you think like you've, you know, because I openly talk about how much sport has played such a big factor in my life, you know. You definitely think that's where the start of the confidence and stuff came from.
That's where it all started, yeah. I mean, I just, I often look back to the, you know, I told you about me beating my brother at the sports camp, but then, you know, I had the decision, like, was I going to pursue table tennis? Was I going to actually start training properly? And I suppose I was a really nervous kid with no confidence. And I remember him and hawing about sending an email to the coach at UCD. And I 2 or 3 months went by, and I just felt, you know, that I'd be a nuisance and that he wouldn't want to hear from me, and that I'd be the worst player in the hall, which I was. And I'm just so glad that I sent that email, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like what I said earlier, sometimes you have to take the initiative, and, you know, my coach, he took me under his wing from there. And people are a lot nicer than they seem a lot of the time, but you sometimes you have to break the ice.
Yeah, kind of put yourself out
Put
there.
yourself out there, 100%.
Yeah. I suppose like a lot of the people probably, especially like you were probably conscious about, or you weren't conscious about at that stage, you know, but if you kind of put yourself out there for people and kind of, now, because like you, with the going back to what you were saying about your friends when you were teenagers, they probably automatically just assumed that, oh, sure, why would Colin want to come to where you are?
Wouldn't be comfortable, you know.
Yeah,
that was the height of it.
And it was just obviously a miscommunication at that point, because you said they were really good people, didn't you?
They were, yeah. And I never had any problem. They were the best in the world. Like, I was so lucky with my year in school, and the lads were so supportive of me. But yeah, it was the exclusion that was probably the
And
most.
everything is great in hindsight, you know, but do you kind of regret not speaking?
Yeah, I
at
suppose how would I
at
have
that
known
time?
any different, though? You know,
Yeah.
it was like I didn't have a role model. I didn't have anybody to guide me. And even my parents, they were the best in the world, but even them, it was hard in that situation to know what to do. You know, they probably just thought the same as me.
Yeah.
Maybe the guys just didn't want me there, you know?
Yeah. I'd say it was, you know, obviously, again, everything's great in hindsight, but, you know, it's just like, I'm sure that they would have loved to having you there. You probably just didn't think you were up to it, or, you know, that you wouldn't be probably comfortable in a situation like that, in, like, say, house party or nightclubs or this and that.
Yeah,
Now,
and I think it's the same old story. Like I was in sort of such a place of pain that I just had to change my situation, and I had to take action. And I suppose it took it. I waited until I was at my lowest point till I just decided that I had to. No more of this, that I decided I'm going to take action, I'm going to take control, and
yeah,
I'm going to take a risk. I'm going to say to the lads,
yeah,
what's going on
yeah.
here?
What's I want
Yeah.
to, yeah. And what, like, what them feelings been like? Were you kind of conscious when you were kind of going into restaurants or nightclubs or whatever? What them kind of feelings like that? You were kind of like, or everybody's looking, or did you think that a lot back then, or?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and so I wore prosthetic legs and a prosthetic arm
Right,
from a
okay.
young age. That's a decision my mum and dad made, and I wore my prosthetics until 28, like so.
Right, okay. So
29,
relatively,
relatively.
right.
Yeah, I've only stopped wearing I stopped wearing my arm about 26, and then stopped wearing my legs about 29, and so I've grown up with my arms and my legs, and they were only for cosmetic purposes. I was only hiding my basically lack of limbs, and um, I was still, of course, aware of people staring at me because I was in a wheelchair. But I think when I took my prosthetics off, and when I wasn't just in a wheelchair, I was missing three of my limbs. I think that was a really, really hard adjustment for me, and I always wanted for so many years to stop wearing the prosthetics because they caused me so many problems. Like I had heat rashes and I had pressure sores, and they didn't really add anything to my life, but I was just so sort of insecure of my disability and so afraid of what people would think of me that I couldn't get rid of them.
What kind of made you let them go in the end?
Like a combination of things. I think my experience with the Paralympics, and meeting lots of different people
Right.
with different perspectives and obviously different disabilities, and just seeing basically nobody really wearing prosthetics for cosmetic purposes. Fair enough if you're wearing a prosthetic to help you walk, but that wasn't the case for me. It was just it was for cosmetic purposes, and it just like it took such a long time because I've obviously been competing since I was 15, 16, but I think it just got to the point where I decided it's not me anymore. I want to just be myself. And
Yeah.
it's crazy. Yeah, it took 28
Well,
years.
it's just like, I'm sure it's a really
When you've
difficult.
grown up with something and you don't know any different,
Yeah.
it's like I look back now and I'm thinking,
Yeah,
what
thinking
was
you
I-
should have done
what
it
was I
sooner.
doing? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But
But
again,
then,
it's like back in the teenage years, you don't think like that at the time.
yeah, because obviously there's,
Hindsight is a great thing.
yeah, well, that's it. There's obviously the insecurity of being different, or, not being the same as kind of like what, because obviously society kind of looks at disabilities a certain way. I even know from being in a wheelchair, and I was conscious of that when I was in the wheelchair. It's like, oh, thankfully I was already kind of mature and confident in myself at that point. But by the time I had my accident, so it was less of an issue for me, I would say, because again, I was at the maturing into myself.
Yeah.
So to a degree, I had an life advantage of being mature and confident in myself. But I still definitely felt like, when I was in the wheelchair, and it was definitely a change for me. I was like, whoa, it was definitely somewhere in my mind when I would go to new places or restaurants, or I would have to be helped in somewhere because I was in the wheelchair. It was definitely a daunting feeling for me.
I think there's a big disadvantage there as well, like because obviously you have the advantage of being able-bodied and the experience and the confidence, but then I suppose I was born in my disability and I don't know any other way, and then like I can't even imagine what it's like to to have all your limbs and have them taken away, or to be able to walk and then suddenly be in a wheelchair. It's so different to being born with your disability and not knowing any other way.
Yeah, because I suppose like you would have learned to kind of adapt to
Yeah, I
that.
had time, didn't I?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So that's what, like, a lot of the majority of my friends on the tour have had accidents, and it is so different to being born
Yeah.
with your disability,
yeah,
and
and
some people cope better than others.
yeah, and you kind of think like that, like kind of life is kind of made you be resilient in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I
would
mean,
you say?
I just didn't really have a choice from
Yeah.
from a young age. You know, it was like I said, failure was my reality. You know, everything was more difficult with one arm and no legs, and I think that helped me build a lot of resilience. Never been afraid to fail. Never be afraid to look like an
Yeah,
idiot.
because like you seem like you have, like, cause obviously we've spoke about it even on the way out. Like you seem like you have a great relationship with failure, which
Yeah,
a lot of people don't. By the way,
no,
obviously,
and I think it's
where do you think that came from?
well, I suppose it's thanks to my parents, isn't it? From introducing me to failure from a young age and leaving the uniform out in the bed, and you know, obviously the obstacles got far greater than that after. But you know, everything all the way through the teenage years, learning to play table tennis, studying, going to school, pushing the wheelchair with one arm, everything was more difficult, and I was so used to. I suppose I didn't look like failure as like a
Like this,
verdict on my ability. I looked at it as like data and something that I could learn from
yeah,
instead.
brilliant. Yeah, yeah. Like you almost looked at it like a way, like, okay, I'm at the failing at that. Let me try a different way,
Yeah,
almost.
yeah.
Yeah, because
Because
that's the way I look at it. You know,
yeah,
and I really, because I'm a big fan of your stuff. You know, your videos and the message you put out there. But I love, yeah, actually always. And I try to do it as best as I can. Also, I reframe a lot of things. You know, I would say, okay, well, let's not look at failure this way, or let's not look at this that way. Let's reframe the mind and think, you know, oh no, maybe we should do it this way. You know, there was a clip yesterday, actually, someone tagged me in a clip that I done previously on a podcast, and what I said on the clip was the same pot that softens the potato hardens the egg. And what I meant by that clip was, like, I grew up in Dublin 1 and grew up in a lot of poverty and drugs in my family and stuff, but I didn't look at that as a negative. I chose to take the positives and looked at it and going, okay, well, that's the hard life has given me a resilience. It's given me so many different, you know, it's given me work ethic to make the kind of want to grow up and change my life. You know, it's given me so much, and kind of to a degree, I would say I would choose to live that life, you know, 20 times out of 20 times, because it's made me into the kind of person, and it's given me the mindset that it has today. You know, but it
that's
seems like I love the way you reframe a lot of situations.
yeah. Well, I had no choice from a young age, and I think because of my disability, I'm just so much more motivated, so much more resourceful. I've been exposed to so many different environments and people that I never would have had the opportunity had I been able-bodied. I don't know where. I don't know. I don't know if I had two arms and two legs where I would be, but I'd be a very different person. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
You definitely, I could imagine you definitely wouldn't be as comfortable with
No,
failure
nah,
as you are now,
you
you
wouldn't. Yeah.
know.
And there was a period in my life where I avoided failure. You know, in the teenage years, particularly when I reached good success in Ireland. Like I was the best player in Ireland around 16, and it was then that I avoided failure, and that was probably one of the worst times in my life where I just sort of became quite protective of what I had, and I didn't take action a lot of the time because I was afraid to fail, and that catches up with you after a while. You don't learn anything, and that, you know, with that attitude, I never would have progressed. You know,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I think failing, trying and failing is much better than not trying at all.
yeah.
You know, and I think so many people are afraid to try and afraid to go through that sort of discomfort, because you know, the first time anybody tries anything difficult, they're not going to be very good at it, are
Yeah,
they?
yeah.
So,
It's for a lot of
and
people
people are
though.
embarrassed to what people think of them. You know,
Yeah, and it's that
judgment.
disheartening feeling, isn't it? When you
Yeah,
fail, that's what I feel like most people kind of get turned off by. That, like, oh,
yeah,
this is feels really shit or bad, and I actually don't want to do this again. I don't want to feel like that again.
yeah.
You
And
know, where do you think that ability to kind of reframe things? You know, because I, I believe, like I say, like life is perspective. You know, and it's, you know, it's definitely what way you look at things. What way you look at life depends on the quality of life, I believe. Like, you know, I remember seeing this picture before, and there was two guys on the bus, and on one side of the bus there's like all these grey dark mountains, and some guys just, it's basically just a wall, it's the side of a mountain. And then on the opposite side of the bus there's a guy looking out into the ocean, and it's like beautiful scenery, and it's all, you know, the sun's out, the seagulls are out, and it's just a great image, you know. And
the guy who was looking at the side of the mountain could have just got up and just sat on the other side of the bus, but he chose to just still look at the side of the just grey blank mountain, you know, where the other guy was like, he, you know, they were on the same bus. He just chose to look at different things, you know. But I love your message because you're always reframe things and go, oh well, let's not think about looking at life this way. Let's look at it this way.
Like what's wrong and what's bad in our life is always there for us to focus on. But you know what's good is always there too. And you know, I remember, you know, obviously I grew up in an able-bodied school. I was the only kid in the school with a disability, and you know, I just I remember being so angry at that, you know, and it was only when I started to compete internationally on the Paralympic scene, and I met someone with no arms and no legs.
Right. Because at that point you said that you were the first person in Ireland born.
Yeah, with my condition, yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
So you actually couldn't
didn't
even
know anybody.
speak to anybody else, and that was like you were saying that was before the internet had.
Yeah, exactly. And before sport.
Right.
So I was in an able-bodied school, and yeah, the only kid in the school with a disability. But then when I was exposed to that, that's perspective. You know. I mean, and I suppose I was in like a bubble in South Dublin where, you know, I suppose the kids were like, they're quite privileged, and you know, they're all able-bodied, and that was my bubble, and I didn't have anything else to compare to. And it was only then that when I started traveling and I started meeting other people with different perspectives and with different disabilities, and like I just can't imagine myself without my arm, you know.
Yeah,
like
it's especially, I could imagine it was definitely difficult before you met other people like that as well. Because when you just think like, oh, I'm the only one like this, and everybody else is
in the
different.
world, you know. Yeah, that's what it seems like. You know, I've been hard done by here, but
yeah,
I haven't really on the grand scheme of things. There's people in hospital. You know, there's people
taking the last breath.
Yeah,
exactly. Literally now as we speak.
Would give anything and everything to go outside. So you know, things are not that bad. Really.
And how would you say you dealt with that, like, frustrating feeling? Like, even say now, like, do you still get frustrated from time to time? How do you tend to usually like deal with them kind of frustrations?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all have our bad days, I suppose. But when the bad days come around, I try and think of perspective, like how bad is it really, you know?
Yeah.
You know, like if I've lost a table tennis match, an important match there, I lost in the European Championships a couple of months ago. I was really disappointed, but like, how bad is that really? Like,
in the grand scheme of things,
I've had a good year overall. That's the most important competition of the year, and I didn't want to lose, but like, we learn from it, you know. And it's all about reframing. Things are never as bad as they seem, you know. And your worries, your worst fears, they rarely come true. All the things that we worry about, you know, I think we should spend more time thinking about, you know, what if things do go right? And be ready for that when they do go right. Because
I do always say that, you know, people be like, oh, what if it goes wrong? And I'm like, yeah, but what if it goes right?
Yeah.
Which
what are you going to do then?
Could, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I definitely know where it's like, speaking for myself, you know, like even when I had fights coming up, like I used to build fights up to this big monumentous occasion, like, you know what I mean? And it was like, it was the be all and end all.
Yeah.
But I mean, as I started to mature and kind of, you know, I was going through life more, I was like, fighting is such a small part of my life, but it was such a big part for me, and that's why I think I made it such a big thing. But you know, when I actually sat back and actually reevaluated everything, I was like, fine, it's big for me, but it's actually such a small part of life. 100%. And losing a fight isn't, because, you know, I remember kind of having to deal with that a little bit, you know. When I used to lose fights, I would get quite down on myself and be like, 100%. All the hard work is for nothing and stuff, you know, because I'm sure it's the same thing with you. People only see like the tip of the iceberg when they see you coming out and playing a table tennis match. Yeah, the result. But, you know, do you ever see that picture of the iceberg where it's just the tip is just coming up out of water and there's so much underneath, you know? And that's like, for me, that is like training for a fight or training for the preparation leading up to the table tennis match. You know, you don't see the countless hours spent in, you know, playing games or me in the gym, or, you know, there's just so much more to it. Going home
And
in the
thinking
night,
about it.
yeah, like
Hours
obsessing
spent
over it, yeah.
yeah.
You know, or
This
you
is
had to having a bad game that game, or, you know, you're having a string of bad games in the training sessions. And, you know, 'cause that used to happen to me. It could be, you know, I'd be training really hard for a fight, and I'd be getting beat up in the gym, and I'd be like, the doubt would be creeping in, and I'm like, oh, this feels so shit. Like, you know, people don't see them nights, they just see the wins and the losses when you show
yeah.
up on the day. You know, it's yeah, that I think that's something that people don't talk about enough. But ultimately, as well, it's in the grand scheme of things, it's actually not that big. I
No.
mean, like it is for us. You know what I mean? Like, it's awful for me losing a fight and you to lose a game. But in
Yeah.
the grand scheme of things, in the game of life, it's actually not
No.
that big.
It's not everything. And I think the medals and the titles and the wins, and because I've had wins and I've had losses, but they do fade over time, I think. But I think it's what you learn from them, and the person you become because of it is
Yeah,
what's more important. And that's sort of very much the road I'm on now. Like, I'm trying to be my best version of myself in table tennis, but I'm also trying to have a positive impact and sort of share the lessons that I've learned on my journey, and hopefully bring others up.
yeah,
That's a big focus of mine now outside of table tennis. And I've always said I'm much more than a table tennis player, and
yeah,
I think that's comforting, you know. 'Cause
yeah,
then when the table tennis doesn't go well, it's not the be all and end all, like you say.
yeah.
It's not everything.
Would you definitely think that you try and take the lessons away from the failure of table tennis and translate them into life?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like, I think the losses and the like competing at high performance level has taught me so much about myself, and it's taught me to be honest and accountable, you know. And that was just a massive thing. And obviously, from a young age, my parents instilled in me that nobody was coming to save me. And
Yeah,
even
no,
though they
so
were the
like
most
that.
supportive parents in the world, and I had great friends, and I, you know,
Mm.
you learn from the losses, and you
Yeah.
tend not to learn very much from the wins.
Yeah.
You tend
Yeah,
not
yeah,
to.
yeah.
You
Oddly enough, yeah.
you think you don't really think.
Well,
You
that's
don't
what
second guess yourself if you're
yeah,
winning all the
because when
time,
you're
do you?
winning, you know, because that's what I say to people as well. Like, that's why, or even for me, you know, I tell the young kids in the gym, like, that's why the losses are so much more important. Because when you're
That's how you
winning,
improve.
yeah, because when
That's
you're
why you
winning,
play with
you
better
think
players.
like,
That bring you up.
yeah, but when you're winning, you think, well, sure, why would I need to change that? And whatever
Yeah.
I'm doing is working.
Yeah.
But when you have a couple of losses, you're like, oh, I really need to reevaluate what's happening here.
Yeah, 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 and
You
learn
know,
from it.
but I think it's good they translate well in they definitely, the losses for me definitely translated well into life for me. Would you say that would have been the same?
100%. But I suppose that was ingrained in me from a young age. But I suppose when I was a kid, I didn't care too much about what other people thought, and that was the big difference in table tennis when I was number one in Ireland. And
Did you find yourself like you didn't actually care when you were a kid? It was just more when you got to the teenage years.
Yeah, I
That's
was
when.
unaware, I suppose.
Right,
You know, and
okay.
even into the teenage years, I was like,
So you're never really conscious.
I wasn't like
you
afraid to
weren't
fail.
you weren't too conscious when you were a kid that like kind of you're not that you weren't conscious about it, but when you were a kid, it didn't really bother you that you weren't kind of
Yeah,
what you
that
would
I
say the same.
struggle with something
Right.
simple like putting on a tie or whatever, or putting on my shirt, and I knew that I was going to be slower than that, and that didn't bother me. But I suppose then when I reached a certain level in table tennis, and you know, I suppose when you're that age and you achieve success quickly, you sort of get a little bit of an ego, and then suddenly you do care about losing.
Yeah,
You don't see it
yeah,
as
yeah,
a lesson, and you don't see it as
yeah.
failure and learning from it, and you just want to win, 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 and it's only because of what other people think. You know, it's that was the biggest thing that held me back, I would say.
And like when things, you know, when you're obviously, it seems like you're a lot more mature. You're a lot more mature now, and you kind of think about things different. But when things were going wrong for you then, what would have been like? What was your natural reaction to things then? You know, when with the losses and everything else on.
Yeah, I think like the losses came just because I was quite protective of what I have, and I was quite risk averse, and I was indecisive. I never made a decision, and I think that's a big lesson that I carried into my life as well. But I was just so afraid to lose that when it came to the important moment, I just try and hold the ball in, and I actually wouldn't ever take the initiative. Compared to when I was a younger player and I didn't care too much about the result.
Yeah,
I
you were
played,
just you were just playing for the sake of playing as opposed to
waiting
playing
for
to
my
win or
opponent to miss. Which, if you're
Yes.
playing a good opponent, they tend not to miss. In the
Yeah,
important
yeah,
moment. So
yeah.
it tends to be the person who takes the initiative as the upper hand. And for years I didn't do that. I was just played it so safe.
Yeah.
All the time.
You would just say you're more sometimes you're playing more not to lose rather than to win.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. It's yeah, 'cause it's like sometimes I've been in fights and especially like some fights where I just remember thinking like I know this is a really big fight or whatever, and but thankfully I was able to let go of that mindset where I was going in, because I see that in a lot of fighters where they will just always do the safe thing where they're just in there and not to lose rather than being in there to win.
I think it catches up with you after a while.
Mm.
You can win games like that, and
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah, of
But-
course, but it's
It's
I-
limiting.
yeah. I don't really feel like it's a true potential.
The number
Then
one in the
when it's
world doesn't
like
do
that,
that, I don't think.
Yeah, and you said you're ranked in the top
Yeah,
10 in the
9.
world as of right now.
Yeah, ninth. Yeah, my best ever ranking actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Okay. You're currently ranked
Yeah.
the best. Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unreal. And what's next for you in table tennis?
So I've 8 international events this year before the World Championships. So it'll start from March. So very, very busy international calendar. A lot of events. But yeah, I've had a good training block now since the disappointment of the Europeans. Even though I had a good year overall last year, and I feel I've come on a lot since Paris 2024. I'm just really looking forward to testing myself on the big stage now and seeing where I'm at.
And would you say, like, with all the adversity, like, of kind of life, sport, all them sorts of things, would you say that's definitely helped change your perspective on life?
Yeah, 100%. I think I have a much better attitude to my table tennis now, and I'm a much better person because of it. And I just sort of control the controllables, I would say now, and I do what I can do, and I'm not so much worried about the result anymore. And like I said, I've things outside table tennis now, and that really, really has benefited me massively. For years, I was a full-time table tennis player. I gave up my job in finance, and table tennis was everything to me.
You went all in on it.
Yeah. It was a big sacrifice, not one that my mother was too impressed with.
So especially giving up a
Yeah.
good job in finance.
Yeah, exactly. Earning good money, and I gave it all up to. I moved to Slovakia, and I played for a club in Germany, and I'd missed Rio by one place. I was studying actuary at that point, so I wasn't really on my radar, even though I ended up missing it by one place. But I just determined to qualify for Tokyo, and I was going to leave no stone unturned. But at that point, it was really hard, and I'm sure you can relate, Ryan. Like when I went full time, I poured my heart and soul into it. I did everything, and there was months like I felt like I was getting worse.
Yeah.
And I was.
Yeah, you definitely do get caught up in it like that.
Yeah. And it's just it's a hard thing to manage. I think you need other things in your life. You know?
And you would say you like today you definitely have more other things in your life
I
going
have
on.
more of a I still train just as hard, but I have more going on, and I think my time that I spend off the table is much more better. And then when I come to the table, I'm ready to play. I'm excited to play.
Yeah.
I haven't obsessed about table tennis for the last 10 hours. The way I'm just I come to the table and I'm ready, and I'm enjoying it now.
How would you say your life looks different now in comparison to then? Like, would you be just going out more with friends, or you've kind of probably other hobbies? Or
Yeah. I've more of a balance now, I'd say. I try and socialise with my friends. Speaking is a big part of my life now.
Yeah, nice, because you do a lot of
I do a lot
speaking engagements.
Speaking engagements with companies and schools and intermediaries and wellness events, and that's something I've been doing for a few years now. And something that I really want to pursue in the future. And I'm trying to be quite active on social media these days.
No, loving the videos.
And yours too, man. Yeah, just trying to post content and have a positive impact. And you know, then I have the gym and I have my family and my friends, and I just have much more than when I was in Slovakia. It was literally 100% table tennis and nothing else. And
and people don't talk about the cost about going all in on stuff like that, like on your mental health.
Not,
as
yeah,
well,
no,
you know?
people deal with it differently. Some people deal with it very well.
Yeah,
You know, but I suppose it's not for everybody. And for me, it was really, really difficult. And I did qualify for Tokyo in the end, so it worked out. But I'd say I struggled a lot along the way, and sort of going full time and moving abroad was probably a bit extreme, I'd say, on hindsight. But I just didn't want to have
definitely
any
good life
regrets.
experience, I could
A
imagine.
very good life experience. Yeah, out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
In a country that doesn't really speak English, and different culture, and just people with different perspectives, I suppose. And
How you know, how well would you say your message is received by the average person? I'm sure you have loads of people who reach out to you about your videos and stuff, and the kind of message you push. I'd say you're very well received. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's really picked up over the last few months, and you know, I'm just
Why do you think that is? Because you're doing more content, would you say?
yeah. Well, I think I've been resilient with it. I would say it's like anything. It's like putting on my uniform from the age of 4. I wasn't good at it at the start, but you know, you get better each time, and I stuck with it. And you know, nobody was watching my videos 6 months ago, and now, you know, a lot of people are
there's a lot
watching my
of people.
videos.
Yeah.
And you know, that was just my goal. My dream was to have a positive impact, because I suppose I know what it's like to be bottom of the pit and to be down and not know what the best way forward is. And it's one of my big goals now in life, is to sort of be the light that leads someone home someday, leads them through the storm, leads them through the dark times. And that's a big focus in my life now. And I try and, I suppose, be as authentic as possible with my content, and sort of share stories from my own life and lessons that I've learned, and just try and make it universally relatable, which isn't always easy, I suppose, because, you know, I was born with a unique disability, and I've sort of a unique perspective and see the world differently. But I always try and make it as relatable as possible to as many people as possible, and just sort of share what I've learned. And I'm far from perfect, and I don't always know what the best way forward is, but I want to try
but
and
obviously,
help.
you know, you're helping so many people by just, you know, helping.
I'm in a good place now, and I know what it's like to be in a bad place, and I'd like to help
just
others
help
be
people through that little bit of a storm.
Yeah.
No, it's such a great message, and obviously you're doing such a brilliant job at doing it. You know, how do you find the speaking engagements now?
Yeah, I mean,
what sort of speaking engagements do you say you do? Like, where would be kind of like you were saying, skills there and stuff
yeah,
like
so
that?
I do like a lot of speaking engagements at schools, corporate events, wellness events. I'm always looking for speaking opportunities. I've done a few speaking courses now.
Nice.
Yeah.
Because much like we are talking about in the car on the way out, you know, I think people, when they see us speak, and I definitely wasn't conscious about it, but now that I speak a little bit for a living,
you become more aware of it, don't you?
there's so much going on that people
You
just
think it's
I
just
think
words
people
coming out of
think
your
it's just
mouth.
words coming out, and it's like so much more going on.
Yeah,
So you've
it's-
actually went and got kind of training in speaking.
Yeah. It's speaking is like, it's like a muscle. It's like you've got to practice it, you know. And you know, I didn't put myself out there for years, and I wish I'd done it sooner. But now I'm just sort of looking for as many opportunities as possible, and just put myself out there. It's going to be far from perfect a lot of the time, but
Do you ever get
left-
nervous about doing it? Because I know, like one of the biggest average person's fear is speaking.
yeah, they say it's the
public
biggest
speaking,
fear
yeah.
of humankind. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I learned in my course.
Yeah,
Yeah, which that doesn't shock me,
Mm.
because I mean, looking back on my school and university days, like, just couldn't think of anything worse than having to speak in front of the class, you know. And I suppose, like at the beginning, I was really nervous and really uncomfortable. But I suppose it's like anything. You
Just the
just
more you
you
do it,
learn
isn't
from
it? Yeah.
the experiences, and you mess it up once, you mess it up twice, but then
Yeah.
maybe you mess it up in a different way the next time, and you learn from it. And of course, I'm still nervous. I'm still nervous speaking in front of the camera. The nerves are always there, but I suppose I'm better able to manage them now with the
Yeah.
experience I've gotten. But
I
I'm
think
always
at
trying to
least
improve.
I do kind of always say in my mind, you know, and when I'm speaking in public spaces, I think if you stutter or you mess up a word, you know, I always try and remind myself that what way would I think about somebody who stuttered or messed up a word or whatever. I actually
Mm.
wouldn't think too much into it. I'd be just like, oh, they're just telling a story and they stuttered. But in your mind, when you're up there, it feels like it's the biggest thing in the world. Like, it's like, oh, I can't believe I'm at them saying this or messing up that or stuttering there. But in the grand scheme of things, it's actually,
It's about perspective again. It's
yeah,
like it's not really about you, is it? It's
yeah,
about your
exactly.
audience, you know.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
you're trying to have a positive impact, and you might not always communicate what you're trying to say in the best way, but you're trying to do that, and nobody really in the audience wants you to
yeah,
stutter or
yeah, yeah,
to, you know the
yeah.
way. Um,
They're just there to hear the good message, I suppose.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's not really about me or you or our
Yes.
stutters, you know.
Yeah, yeah. But now I'm just trying to get through to the audience, you know, that everything I think is always a bigger deal in your own mind than it actually is.
100%.
You know, so that's one thing that I've kind of learned, even not just from public speaking or, you know, fighting or whatever. It's just life has just taught me, like, you know, sometimes we're so consumed with everything that's going on in our life that you forget that, you know, just life and the world is just bigger than what's going on in your head. But sometimes you just get so caught up in just thinking about yourself all the time, and it's like, you know, in the grand scheme of things,
It's not the be all and end all, is it?
yeah.
Yeah.
What does kind of like a really good life look like for you right now in this present moment in in your life?
Yeah, well, I suppose I want to reach my best level in table tennis. You know, I'd love to win a medal at the Paralympics, of course, but I really just want to leave no stone unturned now for LA 28, and I'm committed to that. But like I said, more than being a table tennis player, I'd like to be a good example and share the lessons I've learned and bring others up. And what I really want to do in the future is to be a speaker and to reach as
Mm.
many people as possible and have a positive impact. I think that's what I see myself doing after table tennis.
Yeah, yeah, you would like to do more public speaking, you think? Yeah,
Speaking, yeah, and abroad. I've got a few international speaking engagements this
nice.
year, which is great. And yeah, just always trying to reach more audiences and
Yeah,
have more of an impact and improve my
yeah.
speaking and communicate the messages in a better way, communicate the messages that I want to communicate
Yeah.
in a way that's, I
I think
suppose,
it could be
relatable.
such an asset on people's lives hearing you speak and spreading your message more, you know, because obviously your social media is like so good right now, but when you start getting to world stages and people are saying you, they could really benefit from hearing somebody like you speak, you know, I think.
Yeah, no, like it's my dream just for people to see their circumstances differently, you know.
Mm. And, you know, for somebody who's probably going through a hard time in their life right now, what kind of, how would you help them reframe what way they look at life?
Just that things are going to get better, aren't they? Like, and it's like what you said earlier. Like, it's always you think it's much worse than what it
Mm.
actually is, and you know, I look through all my hard times and my tough times, and like, a lot of it was just in my head. You know,
Yeah.
there were things that I was worried about that never happened or that weren't the
What
case. Or
what was kind of some of the stuff that you used to struggle with that you would kind of build up into your head that you kind of realised later on that actually wasn't as big as a deal
yeah, it was
that
like that the players in the table tennis club wouldn't want to play with me because I wasn't good, or that the lads wouldn't want to have me at the rugby match or at a party because they wouldn't want anything to do with me, or girls wouldn't have any interest in me because of my disability, and
mm,
none of it was true.
yeah, just
It might have been true in some cases, but
yeah.
in the general sense, it wasn't true.
Yeah,
It
I
was just
think
in my
in
head.
99%
Yeah,
of the cases actually wasn't, you know, because obviously I think most people are just conscious that you're actually a fantastic human being and great to be around, and I'm sure you're a pleasure to be around all the time, so
You too, sir.
yeah, no, I appreciate that, but yeah, it's so, just getting caught up in the head. So just for anybody who's going through a really difficult time in their life right now, you would just kind of just tell them, like, just try not to overthink things too much.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean,
Is there any kind of things that you do to help you overthink?
yeah. Well,
Not overthink, rather.
when I was at my lowest point, I really just like set small goals. I didn't have a perfect plan by any means, and I think the biggest reason why I was so down in my teenage years in particular was because, like, I never took any action, and I never took any control or any accountability for my own life, and I just sort of felt sorry for myself. And the day that I decided, F this, I'm not going to tolerate this anymore. I'm going to do everything I can to make it better. And I didn't really know how I was going to do that, but I just made small
You remember that day?
That day,
clearly,
yeah, it was just, it was probably in transition year, probably after some sort of social event, I would say, and I
Okay.
just, like, I was there, but I wasn't there. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I couldn't really speak to anyone. I'd no social skills, and I'd just felt that I didn't belong, and I'd no confidence in myself. And the reason that I'd no confidence in myself was because I never did anything that I was going to said that I was going to do. And that was the time I really decided that I'm going to change that.
Yeah, because I think that's a big one, and I do talk about that a lot within myself. People do often say to me about where I get my confidence from, and what I actually always say is I never let myself down.
Yeah.
I remember
It's
being
your
like,
relationship with you, isn't it?
yeah, because I remember being like, younger and training for fights and stuff, and I remember saying, like, there would be times where I would go out and run on the road at 3 in the morning or 4 in the morning, but if I said to myself the night before that I was gonna go and run, I would never not get up and show up, because it was just reinforcing in my mind that I'm somebody who says I'm the kind of person that I've been telling people I am. You know what I mean? So if 4 o'clock came in the 4 in the morning came and I didn't get up and go on the run, that would be kind of a little letdown with
You'd be
myself.
letting yourself down.
Do you know what I mean?
You'd be
And
diminishing.
I'd be breaking trust with
Yeah.
myself. So that's where I would say to people, like, I'm so confident in myself because I'm for myself somebody who, somebody could ring at any time in the morning and count on. That's who I am for myself. And I think that's stuff that anybody can implement in their life. Just be somebody who follows through with what they said you are going to follow through, because I always say the opposite is true. If you keep on letting yourself down and other people down all the time, you start to kind of internally say to yourself that you're somebody who lets everybody else and yourself down, so you're kind of not trustworthy, you know.
100%.
And so just going back, I completely agree with what you're saying. Just kind of following through on your actions, and it doesn't. What I even say to other people is, you don't have to start off like you're taking over the world. Just start off
You don't,
small.
because you'd never start. If that
Yeah,
was the case. And
exactly.
That's the big problem why people are stuck. Then
Yeah,
you don't, like, Rome wasn't built in a day. You just
Yeah.
take one small improvement, one small decision, one
yeah.
better
I
choice.
like the saying, Rome wasn't built in a day, but Rome was built every day.
Exactly.
Yeah, do you know what I mean?
100%.
So it's like,
Yeah.
it's you don't have to do everything all at once, but you have to start
You have
and
to
start.
do something though.
Yeah,
Because
Yeah, no.
otherwise it's easy to kick it down the line and never do anything. And that's what made me hit my lowest point, because I just procrastinated and said, pretended that I didn't know the way when I did know the way. I think
Yeah.
a lot of us do know the
Yeah,
way.
of
You know
course,
what
yeah.
the right,
I
what the
think
right
we
thing
all
is to
know
do.
what we should
You
be
pretend
doing.
that you don't know
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
you're doing, but you know generally the right. You might not know the perfect plan,
but you know where you can
generally.
start.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
But it's just having to stop lying to yourself, isn't it?
Yeah.
and going like, you know, because I think we can all lie to ourselves and make excuses as to why we're not as far as along as we should be, but it's kind of uncomfortable to go, oh no, you're not as far along because you keep on avoiding the work that you know you should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think a lot of us can definitely lie to ourselves a good bit, you know, and I'm not a perfect person, and you know I'm definitely not, but I try not lie to myself as best as I can. You know, if I'm in a wrong in a situation, or I know there's something that I should be doing that I'm not, and then I'm kind of complaining that, oh, you know, maybe I should be further along, and then I'll kick back into kind of myself and go, yeah, but you know, you had to be procrastinating there, and you could have done that when you had the opportunity, but you didn't. You know, but it's uncomfortable, I suppose, to
Yeah.
say that.
It's
You know, I know.
accountability, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause it is. It's uncomfortable. You know. You know, we all know what we should be doing, but I think a lot of the time why people avoid it is because it's very uncomfortable to confront yourself about it.
Yeah.
Because no one likes that idea of like being in the wrong, or
No, they like to blame other people or the
Yeah.
external.
yeah,
Always, yeah. And that's what I did sort of when I was a younger table tennis player, and then I realised like only I have lost the match.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not my
Yeah.
coach or my sparring partner or my opponent or the conditions or whatever else, like the
Yeah.
external. It's
I think it's definitely difficult though, isn't it? Like, you know, to kind of confront it now, because it is.
it's uncomfortable. Yeah,
Yeah.
It's
I think because it is, in fairness, it's actually a lot easier
yeah.
to blame somebody else.
Of course it is.
Because
Yeah,
then
yeah.
it's not your fault, you know.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel any? Do you ever feel any pressure in your own life to be a role model for people and for the world?
Yeah, well, yes, like
Yeah.
because I never really had a role model growing up, and I
Right.
think that was a big reason why I was in such a dark place. You know, if I had the role models that I have now, I don't think I ever would have went through the struggles that I did, and that's why I think it's so important to, you know, share your story and share your testimony and post on content on social media, and you know, let people know your struggles and give them hope, because you know I didn't have that growing up, and I
Yeah.
think that if I did,
Yeah.
I
'Cause
wouldn't
that was one-
I
'cause
wouldn't
that
have
was
went
one of
through
the
all that pain,
questions.
or it would have
Yeah.
helped me at least.
Yeah. Because obviously we have a mutual friend, Nick,
Nick, yeah,
you know, and I think if you had because Nick is somebody with a very similar condition than
to me
yourself.
and a huge idol for me, one of the most impressive people that I've ever met. Had I known him earlier,
Yeah. Yeah, because that's what I was going to get to. It's like if you had somebody like Nick in your life who you kind of, because I suppose what you were saying was that was kind of no social media, no social media. It was, I'm sure it was around, but it wasn't too big when you were born, and you kind of didn't have anybody to compare yourself to.
no.
You know, so I think like if you had somebody like Nick
If
in
I'd
your
seen
life, yeah.
someone like Nick,
But you know, but that's why it's so good for you to be spreading your message and you're using your platform, because you know you don't know that there's no little kid now with a similar condition to you and looking and going, oh,
if he
I
can
can be
do it,
like
I
Colin.
can.
You
Yeah,
know,
100%.
yeah, it's so important
So
to-
powerful.
to push the message. You know, do you feel obligated to do that sometimes?
I do now, and I'm angry with myself that I let it go so long. And again, it was just the same old story. It was the fear of judgment and
Yeah, what will people think of me? Almost
exactly. But,
Yeah.
and I wasn't at all good in the beginning, and I wouldn't say that I'm perfect by any means at the moment. But I'm getting better, and I'm reaching more people, and you know I'm going to continue.
What do you think the switch in you was that you were kind of like, oh, I actually don't care anymore, and I'm just gonna do social media, or I'm gonna put my message out there?
Yeah,
Do you
well,
remember that? Like, or was it just a gradual?
well, I think it was meeting Nick in
Nice.
February in Dublin last year. You know, to just see someone with such a similar condition to myself having such a positive impact on so many millions of people, I just felt like, you know, what's my excuse for not doing that? Because growing up in an able-bodied school, I made so many excuses that, you know, all the guys have 2 arms and 2 legs, and now to see Nick, who's even has a bigger disability than me, and what he's done, and having reached millions of people that he has, he sort of inspired me to start basically, and yeah, I started pretty much after meeting him, and I'm just very happy that I reached out to him, and like I said, he was one of the most impressive and inspirational people that I've ever met.
Yeah, and now you are that for other people. Yeah, it's incredible the message that you're spreading. Is there kind of any, is there any kind of part of your life that you don't really like to put yourself out there in public or speak about publicly?
I suppose that was another reason I didn't post on social media for a long time, was because like I was quite a private person growing up, and
Right.
I suppose it came from wearing prosthetics, hiding my disability, and sort of I didn't like people knowing too much about me. But I just think now that I want to put as much as myself as possible out there to try and have a positive impact. Doesn't mean that I'm going to share everything on social media. There's some things that are private, but I'm going to really try and share as much as possible and be as authentic as possible, and just have as big an impact as possible, reach as many people as possible.
What would you say one of the biggest things that you kind of still do struggle with from time to time?
From
just in life, like?
Good question. I mean, I suppose I've lots of like I think I struggled with my purpose for a long time, because people only saw me as a table tennis player, and I just knew that was going to end. I actually thought that it was going to end in Paris 2024, to be honest, and then I've decided to go for LA, but I never knew what I was going to do after that, and that was always in the back of my mind, and that was something I really struggled with. What, why am I here?
Yeah.
What am I going to do?
Outside of table tennis, like,
I knew there was a day, and I knew that it was coming soon, where I was gonna finish with table tennis, and I'm just happy now that I've found my purpose, and
you really believe this is your purpose now, to go out there and spread the message and
help as many people as possible,
which is way bigger than like anything you could have done in table tennis. By 100%,
the way, it's much more important.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I agree, because there's, you don't know, and it doesn't even have to be somebody with a disability. It just could be just people who's insecure about themselves or lack confidence, and then they're looking at your videos, and again, the reframing thing, they maybe look at somebody like you and think like, he is confident, and he puts himself out there. What excuse have I ever got to not do that? Yeah,
and that's it's just about shifting people's perspectives and making them see their circumstances differently. And I wish I'd seen my circumstances differently earlier,
Yeah, it's definitely, but it's one of them things, like, again, we're at the saying a few times, it's all well and good looking back and wishing, but I think, the
best time to act was now.
Yeah. What do they say? The best time to plant the tree was 25 years ago.
Yeah,
25 years ago. The second best is today.
Yeah.
But it's
we're going after it now.
Yeah. And so would you say you've kind of like like not left table tennis behind, but you're definitely investing less time into it to spread the message more, you would say?
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't really taken away from my table tennis at all. If anything, it's complemented it, because like I said earlier, now that I have another focus, I think I'm not so stressed about my table tennis.
Do you think it's like not so, it's not, because your life isn't centered around table tennis, there's less pressure about it now, you think?
I'm more excited to go to the table tennis player. I've heard the table tennis table. I've more going on. It's just everything.
You feel like you're just able to enjoy more your normal life now?
Yeah.
Right.
I feel like I'm making the most of my time rather than just sitting waiting for training every day.
Yeah. And what we kind of, like, one question that I did, like, do you ever feel pressure to be positive for other people, because that's what you're known for, being an extremely positive person? Do you ever feel the pressures of that?
Yeah, I mean, because, I'm not always positive. I don't think anybody is. And, I have my bad days, and, I get angry and sad about things. But, of course, I suppose I have perspective at this point in my life. And I always try and see things, from a different point of view. And, how bad, is that loss, or how bad is that, you know, if I've missed a speaking engagement opportunity or whatever happens in my life that isn't going well, how bad is it really on the grand scheme of things? And it's not that bad ever, you know.
Yeah. But you do definitely still feel that, you know, if you are having a down day, it's definitely tough for you because you're known as.
I try and put on a brave face, and sometimes that can catch up with you, you know.
Yeah.
And
it's definitely hard to go around and, you know, because look, even with me, like, we're all human, I suppose.
Yeah, and it's okay not to be okay sometimes, and I think.
But, you know, I suppose when you're known for being a certain kind of person,
positive, happy guy, that it's.
But I think people almost forget that you do have down days as well. Yeah.
And I think the best thing when those times come along is to talk to someone, isn't it?
Yeah.
Your support network. And
like, you would have a lot of good support around you. Like you personally.
Great family and friends, and like I said, people are always.
Your mother and father sound like two phenomenal people.
Incredible, yeah.
Like that story about like leaving the uniform on the end of it, that's amazing.
It's brilliant, yeah.
You know,
it'll set me up for life.
Like, and it's just going back, you know, some people that hear that story and go, it's just somebody leaving the uniform on the end of the bed. But the fact that they didn't come in there, you know, because especially like I've thought, you know, you would do anything to not have them go through uncomfortable or pain or whatever. But I think a lot of the time, well, not even a lot of the time, almost all the time, when you wrap your kids up in cotton wool, you're actually doing them a disservice because you know you're not letting them know that there's hardships out there in the real world.
They're not learning, and
that was so great for you to kind of learn that. Like, it's such a head start you would have had over so many people.
What great foresight they had, you know.
Yeah,
like with no example.
Yeah,
they had no example.
Yeah, that's why I was asking earlier on. Did you ever kind of have a conscious conversation about why they done that or whatever? And you were like, that was just
treating me like my brother, you know.
Yeah, amazing. Like, it's and so nice to, you know, to get, like, you know, your mother and father, that they never treated you different. So you would, I suppose, it wasn't until you were later on in life that you actually probably felt a little bit different because other people would treat you different. But
exactly, yeah.
You know, your mother and father never made you feel any different than as your brother did either. You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's great. But yeah, definitely going back to what we were saying about having a good support network around us,
isn't it? Your environment is. You know, I obviously went through a lot of tough times in my life, and I'm really, really lucky to have always had a great support network and people that helped lift me up when I was down, and people that helped me see perspective when I couldn't see it myself. And yeah, I'm so grateful to my family and friends. I could never have gotten through the adversity without them. And I always say your environment and the people you surround yourself with is it's everything, you know.
And what would you say, like, is one, like, probably the biggest lesson that you've learned in life that would probably translate into?
Well, I think we've spoken a lot about failure, and you know, what I always say is to never shy away from failure, to never be afraid to fail, to never be afraid to look like a fool in front of other people, and to never be afraid of judgment, because I think that was my biggest advantage growing up.
Was definitely like what you thought.
Failure was my reality.
Yeah.
And I was ready to try things at any moment, you know. And it didn't matter if I didn't know how to do it. I'd find my own way. I'd find Colin's way, as my mum and dad used to say.
Yeah. And that
it might be a different way, but it was my way.
Yeah, and if you're able to adapt in life.
Yeah.
Through that lens.
Yeah, it made me take action, you know, rather than, there was points in my life where, you know, of course, you become more aware of your environment, and then you tend to, you get afraid to take action. But I think in general throughout my life, I've never been afraid to fail. I've never been afraid to try something new or to take action and make a decision, even if it was the wrong one, because I felt like, you know, that I'd always learn from it. But you know, staying still and doing nothing and taking no action, you're not going to learn anything from that.
Yeah, because
if you're not in the game, you can't win, you know.
I completely agree, you know. Because there's you ever heard of a guy, Jocko Willink?
No, who's
No, he's this famous army guy who has his own podcast now, and I think he's been on Joe Rogan and stuff. Incredible guy, but talks about he's this army guy, and he's just talking about how an elite mindset in the army has helped him in life, and he kind of translate his mindset from the army and translates it into life. But he talks about if you're ever lost in the woods, what you should do is just keep on moving, because by you keep on moving, if you're going in the wrong direction, you'll eventually realise, oh shit, I'm going in the wrong direction, so now let's go the opposite direction. But if you just stand still and do nothing,
it's the worst thing you can do.
yeah, it's but I thought it was a great analogy because it made a lot of sense. Before we wrap up, tell us a little bit what's next for Colin.
So I've obviously a busy international calendar with table tennis, so I'm very focused on that. I'm back in full training now, and looking forward to seeing where I'm at. But outside of that, I'm gonna keep posting content on social media.
Brilliant.
I'm gonna try and speak at as many speaking engagements as I can, and just sort of get my message out there, reach as many people as possible, and hopefully improve some people's days.
Yeah, I think definitely continuing to keep up the content and spreading your message on social media is absolutely,
it's powerful.
It's definitely, because I think you probably actually don't even realise the amount of lives are changing just by people looking at your videos and, giving them more hope and a positive message and stuff.
Yeah, well, there's a few people out there, Nick probably been the main one who's changed mine.
Yeah.
So
if
I
I'm
can
sure
do that for someone else, then that's
and I'm sure there'll
special.
be many people who will be looking at your videos and think that, and to go back to it as well, not just people with disabilities, but people maybe would just be struggling or thinking life's unfair, and because look, life is unfair.
Yeah, we all
Absolutely,
that's
life
what
is
I
unfair.
said in some of my videos. It is.
But at the end of the day, you dwelling on how unfair life is actually doesn't fix
Serve
anything.
you very well.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, the past is in the past.
Yeah.
And whatever is at the happening, unless you have a time machine, they had to go back and change everything. Yeah, that's so. Yeah, I think keep on spreading the message, and thanks so much for coming on. But I
Thanks
really
so much
appreciate
for having me, Ryan. It was
Thanks.
Really enjoyed our talk.
Great.
Thanks for having
Thanks
me.
so much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everybody.
Pleasure.